They say history is written by the winners. And if you actually study history, you quickly realize how accurate that tends to be. But at the same time, it has some distressing implications. When it comes to the full story of our past, we'll only ever know half at best. But, as it just so happens, that's the history I've spent my career trying to uncover. People often ask me why. Maybe it's because I haven't won much in life. I'm not good at sports, never got straight A's in school, and I don't think I've ever won anything outside a few board games and trivia nights. Or maybe it's just because too much of what we call history is just legends with a slight basis in fact. Just look at any historical figure. Chances are everything they accomplished was mythologized to some degree. Some are less subtle about it than others, but in the grand scheme of things, it paints a clear enough picture for most people. But I am not most people. For me, clear enough isn't clear in my book. I want to know the ugly details from the winners and the losers. That started as my goal when I started studying history. Then it became a passion. Eventually, it became an obsession. That's what ultimately led me to this unenviable position. Now, knowing the full ugly story, knowing all sides of a critical moment in history, it has completely changed the way I see the past. It's changed the way how I see the present even more, and not in a good way. To explain, I'll first need to give a warning to any proud Americans who might be listening to this. What I'm about to reveal, it flies in the face of many cherished historical narratives. But even if you're not an American, this painful truth still matters. Having gotten that out of the way, here's the setup. It's 1775 in colonial America. The Revolutionary War against the British has just begun. Things aren't off to a good start, and the future of the United States of America is very much in question. But the men who would go on to become the Founding Fathers, they're still looking to the future. They have bold ideas for what America could be, if only it could free itself from the grip of the British Crown. Yes, they all have their own agendas, and sure, not all of them are respectable or noble. Remember, many of these men did own slaves. But still, the foundation is there. Everything and everyone that would help create America as we know it, it's all in place. It's just a matter of critical decisions, unique circumstances, and that rare grit that is common to many historical figures. All that is basic American History 101. Most American children who passed history class in high school know that story well. But this is where I come in. This is where I uncover a missing piece to that story. How I came to this information? That's a bit of a longer story that I'd rather not tell. And not just because I made more than a few enemies to get to this point. I promise, there's a good reason why I'm not giving you my name and my credentials. But just know that I studied history at a major university, and I had access to resources that you're not going to find on Wikipedia or even most museums. The only part that's relevant here is my initial goal. I'd been studying the early days of the American Revolution, looking for the untold stories of the Founding Fathers. Much of what I uncovered only added some extra details to what we already knew. But then, I came across this strange letter in an old archive in Philadelphia. It was a letter from Robert Morris to an unknown recipient. Now, the archive actually labeled this as a likely hoax, and half the letter was illegible anyhow. But I still found myself taken by the contents I could make out. One passage in particular sparked my curiosity. It has been a contentious exchange amongst the other representatives. I fear no compromise will appease the concerns of our Southern brethren. Their reliance on the labor of slaves is difficult to get around. While some have their sympathies, others see the tides of fate changing. They claim they just want to temper the institution, But you and I both know that is not possible. Not if we're to achieve the goals we seek. I hope you can use your considerable influence to change their stance. You've already guided us through many intractable differences. I'm confident you'll guide us through this. Although, I must admit, I am concerned about the full extent of your recourse. After that paragraph, Morris signed the letter. I later confirmed the signature matched his handwriting perfectly. But the part of who it was addressed to, that had been torn off, and not by accident either. Somebody was a lot more concerned about the reader than the contents. This began what ended up being a 7-year project, one that put me at odds with every friend, colleague, and fellow American by default. I became obsessed with learning about what this letter entailed and who it had been addressed to. For someone like Robert Morse to send such a letter in the middle of a war, it had to be important. I dug through more archives, visited every museum I could, and even threw in with some less than reputable researchers. I more than likely committed several crimes along the way, securing historical artifacts, conducting illegal digs, and even extorting some people with valuable private collections. I am not proud of some of the things I did. I want to say it was worth it, but damn, after what I uncovered, I'm really not sure. But, like it or not, crossing all those lines did yield some meaningful results. I eventually tracked down more letters between Morse and this mysterious figure. I even managed to find a name, and once I had that information, I crossed the point of no return. Because what came out in that particular letter definitely shook me, as a historian and as an American. This last paragraph of a mostly torn letter from 1776 likely sealed my fate. It would seem the Congress is finally in agreement. Once again, you impressed me with your rhetorical capabilities, Mr. Rath. You convinced every representative south of Richmond to further fund the Continental Army. I've even heard they plan on signing our pending declaration to the Crown of our independence. Mr. Jefferson is hard at work on it as I write this, but I must admit, I remain more cautious than curious. You and your associates have been subtle but forceful. We all have a vision for what we could be as a nation should our war against the British succeed. Mr. Jefferson speaks of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but you speak of things beyond such pursuits. You seem intent on setting this nation up to be something it ought not be. And yet, you've put us in a position from which we cannot escape. I voice these reservations to you, Mr. Rath, as a courtesy, because I genuinely fear for the future of this nation, and should your pursuits conflict with that of the Congress, I will not hesitate to confront you, nor will my fellow countrymen. Sincerely, Robert Morris, to Vincent H. Rath. There's much more to the letter, but it mostly came back to a deep concern that this man, Vincent Rath, was exacting too much influence. Robert Morse writes to him as though they have a personal connection, and his choice of words imply that he fears this man as much as he respects him. That raised the stakes for my efforts even more, because as far as American history is concerned, there was no man named Vincent H. Rath among the Founding Fathers. He's not mentioned in any official documents at the time. He did not sign the Articles of Confederation, the Declaration of Independence, or the Constitution. Couldn't find any records of any kind on this guy. It's as though someone tried to erase him from history. But even if they'd succeeded, I'm not sure that would have made a difference. Because once I had that name, I had a better idea of what to look for. Most of what I saw came in the form of letters, documents, and a few coded messages, many of which I had to painstakingly reconstruct. But in doing so, a world of untold history opened up to me, and that history fundamentally changed the context of America's founding. You see, this man, Vincent H. Rath, he had a lot of influence over the Founding Fathers. You could even make the case that he was one of them. Even before the Revolutionary War began, he did a lot of organizing amongst colonial leaders. His official role, if he even had one, was to get these bickering men with conflicting agendas on the same page. But those conflicts weren't mundane, even for the time. I mean, sure, things like slavery, taxation, religious conflicts, and clashes with the natives were all common issues. Things every founder talked about in some form or another. However, when the name Vincent H. Rath was mentioned, either in a letter or in a reference, big things happened. The founding fathers stopped their bickering and started talking. Not out of revolutionary zeal, but out of fear. A distinct, tangible fear of who this man was and what he could do. In one shredded letter I found from Benjamin Rush to Peyton Randolph, there was this ominous exchange. Let us not pretend we are united by the spirit of liberty, revolution, and providence. We both know that Mr. Rath has been the main guiding force for our efforts, whether our colleagues want to admit it or not. And I strongly believe that we are past the point of reconciliation. Mr. Rath is the one working in the shadows. Our names may be on the foundations of our growing nation, but he is the one molding the plaster. I worry what he might build upon it. For if his ideas on what our nation ought to become take hold... That's where the letter ended. I couldn't find the rest. I strongly suspect that part of it was burned, and that became a common theme the closer I got to the time of the ratification of the United States Constitution. What the founders said publicly, even amongst each other, it did not match what they actually felt privately. All those old paintings you see of the founders, these noble men standing around a table, putting pen to paper for American ideals, that's not just a gross exaggeration. It's a complete farce, a palatable lie to conceal the ugly truth. Now, say what you will about the founding fathers. Call them brilliant but imperfect men. Call them a bunch of old white slave-owning brutes. Call them patriots who embody the best of American values. But the true history about them and the founding of America, even they seem to know on some levels that their story was one big fraud. But they all still went along with it. I suspect many of them believed in the values they preached. They may have even hoped that, with time, the truth of America's founding would come out. But in the end, their place in history, it was nothing more than a script. One written, directed, and orchestrated by Vincent H. Rath, the forgotten founding father, but the one whose influence had no equal. As for why he was going to such lengths to guide history in a certain way, well, it's what led me to the last leg of my journey. It took even more or less than legal methods. But in the end, I still found what I was looking for. I managed to find a collection of letters written by Vincent H. Rath himself. They were actually hidden in an old cemetery that contained dead slaves and British loyalists. Whoever put them there did so with the express hope of them never being found. Their failure might go down as the worst in American history, because these letters gave form and substance to the life, ideas, and values of this mysterious man, this forgotten founding father. And in this one letter he wrote to Thomas Jefferson, he was not shy about his agenda.
In response to your concerns from our previous exchange, Mr. Jefferson, I respectfully decline. I will not change what has been set into motion. Your name may be on the documents, but the words you wrote cannot be unwritten. Your vision for our new nation will remain a dream. Take comfort in the knowledge that many will share that dream. Generations from now, the children of our children will marvel at how we turned 13 warring colonies into these United States. They will celebrate the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that you so thoughtfully articulated in our Declaration. But they will be living a lie just like you. They will be servants to their greater purpose. The only difference is they will never know the part they are playing in this elaborate fiction that are the United States. I have made sure of it. The institutions, the bureaucracy, and the various processes are all in place. This country that you and our brethren helped found will grow and prosper. It will become one of the most powerful nations in this world. I've made sure of that too, as have those who served me. Be proud of that, Mr. Jefferson. but be more proud of the role our nation will play when it falls. Make no mistake, America will fall. And when it does, it'll either set the world right, or it'll destroy humanity for all time. In either case, this will be America's legacy. Sincerely, Vincent H. Rath.
I know. It's bleak and a bit vague. But after reading through every letter, after taking the time to digest every word, I can no longer escape the truth. Nobody can. This man who struck fear and dread into every founding father, I'm convinced he was more than just a man. Maybe he was a collection of men, or maybe he was a real-life demon sent to guide history down a certain path. That might actually make some sense of it all. But whatever he is, the plan he put into place is already playing out. America did become the most powerful nation on Earth. It certainly had its growing pains. In multiple letters, Mr. Rath laid out in disturbing detail how slavery would tear the country apart, how states and territories would expand westward, and how the power of the government would evolve. Now, some of it might have been a product of random chaotic trends, but the endgame never changed. Make America the most powerful nation on the planet, then set it up to fall, and make it fall so hard that it brings the whole of civilization down with it. Why would anyone want that? Why would anyone go to such lengths to ensure it? Well, our forgotten founding father wasn't subtle about that either. This is what he told John Jay a month after the Constitution was ratified.
When Rome fell, Europe plunged into centuries of disorder and disunity. But they recovered. When the dynasties of China collapsed, centuries of war, violence, and revolution consumed the land. But they too recovered. Even when something as mundane as a wealthy man dies, his home still descends into anarchy. His children, his wives, his mistresses, and servants all vie for control. But in the end, they recover and they carry on. It is a never-ending cycle, the one that shall only become more destructive over time. And we shall see to it that this cycle is destroyed. You and others within the Congress may think me mad. More than one man has accused me of being a monster from the pits of hell. Even if I am, there's no escaping this most bitter of truths. Mankind must either find a way to get along, or they must purge themselves of this planet, hoping the Almighty will create a more suitable steward. The rise of these United States will prepare us for that final test. They will become a great nation of wealth, power, and prosperity. But they are already doomed. The structure of the Congress, the powers of the presidency, and the nature of the courts have all but sealed that fate. In time, they will all become hopelessly divided, but not before achieving a greatness like no other. And when that greatness falls, the whole of mankind will fall with it. We may not be here to see it, but rest assured, the founding of the United States of America has already changed the course of history. Should it play out as I suspect, it will ultimately end the whole of history, for us and for everyone. Sincerely, Vincent H. Rath.
After reading that letter, I made a few hard decisions. This is the end of the road for me. As soon as I'm done recording this, I'm going into hiding. I've already made plans. I'm set to leave the country. I won't urge anyone to join me. I didn't expect many to believe my story, especially my fellow Americans. But in all the research I've done, all the information I've compiled, I am still comfortable making a few painful conclusions. The United States of America was never meant to be the land of the free, home of the brave, a shining city on a hill. Everything you see now, all the problems plaguing our politics, our economy, and our society, it's not a flaw. It's all working exactly as intended. Vincent Rath set America up to become the most powerful nation on Earth. He also set it up to collapse, to destroy itself when the time was right. And that end, it's coming soon. Will our forgotten founding father be vindicated? Will the collapse of America mean the end of humanity? As a student of history and a once proud American, I honestly don't know. But I sure as hell don't want to be around to find out.